of every team is to be #1, to win a national championship. This is the story of the quest of the 1976 NCAA basketball title. We call it 76, the year of the Hoosiers. It's presented for your enjoyment by the Lincoln National Life Insurance Company of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And these are some of the people that you'll be seeing and hearing from. The head coach, 35-year-old Bobby Knight. Number 54, Kent Benson, the outstanding player of the 1976 NCAA tournament. Number 42, Scott May, college basketball's player of the year. Number 21, Quinn Buckner, the team leader. Number 20, Bobby Wilkerson, the defensive specialist. And the fifth starter, number 33, Tom Abernathy. Together with the other Indiana players, they formed what has been called one of the greatest teams in college basketball history. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Fleming. I'm standing in the trophy room on the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And with me right here is the most famous trophy in all of basketball. This is the trophy symbolic of the NCAA championship, won by the Indiana Hoosiers in 1976. During the course of this half hour, you're going to meet some of the members of the Indiana team. And first of all, we're going to meet the man who engineered that marvelous 32-game winning streak that climaxed in the national championship, the head coach of the Hoosiers, Bobby Knight. Bobby, thanks so much for inviting us down to the campus and kind of reminiscing a little bit about round ball.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's a great pleasure for us, as always, to have you visit Indiana. It's nice to have a Michigan grad come down here on occasion.
Well, I must admit that final game did have a little bit of a twinge, but I was so proud, as you must have been, to have two Big Ten teams in the final.
Yes, I think both Johnny Orr and I felt that way, and I know that we were very pleased at having our league represented as it was. We've long felt that our league is a great basketball league, and I think this showed a lot of people what we were talking about.
During the course of this program, we're going to be talking about three games, three very significant games: Marquette, UCLA, and Michigan. So let's get underway, first of all, at Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's the championship game of the NCAA Mid-East Regional, the showdown game between #1 ranked Indiana and #2 Marquette. The winner advances to the Final Four in Philadelphia. The loser goes home. For Indiana and Coach Bobby Knight, Marquette represents a tough opponent. But the Hoosiers are used to that competition all season long. They played a schedule loaded with nationally ranked teams. In fact, some say that Indiana had the toughest schedule of any team in the country.
When we went into the Marquette game, we felt that the thing that would give us the most problem was, without any question, Marquette's quickness. We didn't feel that we were an overall extremely quick basketball team, but we thought Marquette was. In the particular game that we're discussing now, our regional final game with Marquette, we knew that we had to contain Marquette from a standpoint of being able to get good shots on our own offensive end of the floor and limiting the shots that Marquette could get at their end of the floor. They're a very, very quick team, an excellent board team. They're not a team that used the break, which I think was something that was a little bit to our advantage. Because of their quickness and speed, we didn't have to worry about that a great deal. But I knew that we would be confronted with a lot of different defenses, and Marquette mixes its defenses very well. So in the time that we had to prepare on Friday, we spent more time going over the various Marquette defenses than anything else in preparation for the ball game.
Indiana made the game's first basket when Scott May hit a jumper from the corner. But for the next 10 minutes, Indiana's offense centered around Kent Benson.
We were able to get the ball inside very well early in the ball game, and Kent Benson scored extremely well for us to start off the ball game to get us going offensively.
In fact, he looked absolutely unstoppable. Big and strong at 6'11", 245 pounds, Benson poured in shot after shot. In the first 6 minutes of the game, Benson scored 10 of Indiana's 18 points. Behind Benson, the Hoosiers were rolling, and they threatened to break the game wide open. They made 8 of their first 10 shots, but along the way, Scott May got into serious foul trouble. After hitting that jumper, May picked up his third foul, and there were still more than 6 minutes left in the first half. For the next few minutes, Indiana continued its deadly shooting. Wayne Radford hits one, putting the Hoosiers ahead by 11, their biggest lead of the game. But without May, the tempo of the game changed. Fired up by Coach Al McGuire, Marquette closed the gap. The halftime score, Indiana 36, Marquette 35. The Warriors in the last 9 minutes of the first half had outscored Indiana 16-6. The pressure was now on the Hoosiers. Marquette had the momentum going, and don't forget, Scott May had 3 fouls. He was the team's high scorer during the season, but he played only 7 minutes in the first half. He scored a total of 4 points. Bobby Knight assessed the situation as he saw it at halftime.
From the coaching standpoint, the thing that we were most concerned about was Scott continuing to play as aggressively as he possibly could and not getting into a position where he was going to get that 4th foul in a hurry. And really, in many cases, as a coach or as a player, you have no control over the kind of situation that you're going to get into that might lead to a foul being called against you. But we were very, very fortunate in the second half in that Scott was not assessed his 4th personal foul at all.
Marquette went ahead early in the second half, but Scott May came to the rescue. He made 3 straight baskets, putting Indiana ahead 42-39. Playing as if he had no fouls at all, May shows his playmaking ability here, getting it inside to Benson to put Indiana in front 55-46. With 4 minutes remaining in the game, Marquette needed to score in a hurry. The Warriors were 9 points down, and they weren't shooting well. As you can see, they were having problems cracking Indiana's airtight man-to-man defense. Tough defense is a trademark of Bobby Knight's teams. According to one of Knight's coaching friends, defense is where Indiana hangs its hat. It's an aggressive, knowledgeable defense, with one man playing the ball, the other 4 helping him out. The Hoosiers are equally as disciplined on offense. Indiana makes very few mistakes. Watch here as Indiana patiently works the ball around with less than 1 minute to play. Constantly looking for the good shot. And patience pays off. Tom Abernathy is fouled. A big play. And Coach Bobby Knight tells why.
At this point, with about 25 seconds to go in the ball game, Tommy Abernathy was fouled and stepped to the free throw line and made both free throws, which gave us a 5-point lead and 25 seconds to play.
Abernathy's foul shots were crucial, all right. During a timeout, Marquette coach Al McGuire argued with the officials so vehemently that he was charged with a technical foul, his 2nd of the game, and it proved to be costly. For Indiana, now had possession of the ball, and all they had to do was to freeze it. Only a few ticks remained on the clock. Indiana had beaten Marquette in the championship game of the Mideast Regional. And coming up, the final basket of the game, Quinn Buckner driving in for the layup. And after he made it, he raced over and embraced Bobby Knight, obviously pleased with the outcome.
I don't think I have ever been as happy after a ball game for a group of players as I was at that particular moment, because here is a group that had worked through, at that point, something like 63 ball games in a row trying to get to a point where they could play for the national championship. That was a goal of ours a year ago, and we weren't able to get to the finals this year. It was a goal, even maybe a stronger goal than we had a year ago. And finally, all of the waiting and all of the work was over with, and we were able to know for sure that we were going to be able to go on to Philadelphia and have a crack at the national championship.
On to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, host of the NCAA championship tournament in this, the bicentennial year. To get to the Final Four, Indiana had beaten 3 of the nation's best teams in the regionals, St. John's, Alabama, and Marquette. Next up for the Hoosiers, UCLA, the defending champions and winners of 10 of the last 12 NCAA championship tournaments. Indiana and UCLA had met in the season opener. Indiana won that one easily by 20 points. Bobby Knight knew that the Bruins were much improved this time around.
We had played UCLA in the opening ball game of the season in St. Louis, and a lot of people felt that here's a great advantage for UCLA going into a second match with Indiana, Indiana having won the first game rather easily. But we felt that all along during the course of the season, we were trying to play to potential rather than play against a particular opponent. And I think this was the focal point for our players going into the UCLA game, as I think was evidenced by their intensity and preparing for the ball game all week long, the way they approached the game and pregame warm-up, the way they went about the introductions. I just had a sense of sitting on the bench thinking that it made little difference that we had played this team earlier in the year or any other team as far as that was concerned. I think that our players had put so much into the season and that they really weren't happy to be in Philadelphia just to be a part of the Final Four. They weren't just pleased with themselves that they had won the Big Ten championship. What they were after was a shot at the final game. The game started out with both teams going at one another pretty hard defensively, and I think the game settled down very early not to be a game of offensive thrusts and a lot of scoring.
Bobby is right. It was a game of tough defense, like this key matchup between number 54, Kent Benson, and UCLA's number 31, Richard Washington, the outstanding player of last year's tournament.
Washington is an extremely good all-around basketball player and definitely one of the better outside shooters for a person of his size that I've ever seen in college basketball. We felt that it would be important to play Kent Benson on Washington for two reasons. Number one, he had the muscle and the bulk to fight Washington inside and the size to make it difficult for Washington to shoot over him outside.
My defensive assignment was on Richard Washington. Richard is a very quick and very good shooter from outside, and my assignment was to stop him from getting the ball, and once he did get the ball, make sure he didn't go around me. And I got excited and wanted to play him, and I played him too tight, too close to him. And Richard is very quick, and he made some quick moves and went right around me. And in the process, trying to stop Richard, I reached in to get the ball and knock it away, and I got myself in foul trouble.
And so with Kent Benson in foul trouble, Bobby Knight called on Tom Abernathy.
After Kent's two fouls, the thing I had to do when I guarded Richard Washington was to try to put as much pressure as I could. And, you know, he's about 4 inches taller than I am, so if he got it inside, I'd just have to hope that he'd miss.
3 inches shorter than Washington, Abernathy was accustomed to this kind of a challenge. During the season, number 33 usually guarded the opponent's best forward. Tom's a 6'7" senior from South Bend, Indiana, and what a job he did on Washington. He did not allow the sharp-shooting UCLA forward any room at all. Against Benson, Washington had scored 5 points in the opening 2 minutes of the game. Abernathy didn't allow Washington to score for the next 26 minutes, or putting it another way, not until there were 13 minutes left to go in the game. Abernathy also found time to do a few other things. He rebounded. He passed off. And he also scored himself, finishing with 10 points to lead all scorers at halftime. Another key Indiana performer against UCLA during the first half was number 42, Scott May. Scott poured in 4 important baskets near the halfway mark of the first half. Just look at the skill of this 6'7" consensus All-American. Bobby Knight says May is the best player he's ever coached. He says it comes from hard work, sheer hard work. That's why he's so good. Scotty can do it all. Indiana led at halftime, 34-26. The Hoosiers played an exceptionally strong first half. Twice, they had to overcome 5-point UCLA leads, and they played magnificently on defense. As a result, Indiana did not have to make many adjustments at halftime.
At the halftime, we cautioned our players to try and come out as tough as they could to begin the second half. I've always felt that the most important segment of any ball game is the first 5 minutes of the game, and then secondly is the first 5 minutes of the second half.
Early in the second half, Indiana opened up a 12-point lead on Quinn Buckner's driving layup. Without question, Bobby Knight was delighted.
Our offense in the UCLA game was a little bit different than it was in most previous ball games throughout the course of the season. Scott May was being very, very closely defended against and was not able to get a great number of scoring opportunities. Quinn Buckner did a great job for us in the first half. He hit a couple of jump shots against the UCLA zone. He took the ball to the basket. He handled the ball extremely well. We got pretty good scoring throughout the course of the ball game from Kent Benson. And I think one of the really important things in the ball game for us was Bobby Wilkerson rebounding. From the very beginning to the very end of the ball game, Bobby played the boards, I thought, better than anybody in the game.
That's for sure. Watch number 20 closely as he soars, pulling down rebound after rebound with those long arms. Against UCLA, Wilkerson dominated the boards. He got 11 rebounds in the first half, finished the game with a high of 19. Equally as powerful and effective on both the offensive and defensive boards. Here, Wilkinson misses a shot, battles for the rebound, and then scores. He's fouled. And that just about clinches it. A 3-point play, giving the Hoosiers their biggest lead of the game, 45-32. As the game progressed, UCLA did manage to catch fire. They cut the margin to 48-42 with a little bit over 8 minutes to go. So Indiana called timeout, and Bobby Knight describes what happened in the big play that followed.
We really didn't do anything very difficult at the timeout or very intricate. We just talked about maintaining our lead and going from there and trying to increase it a little bit so we could have some room going down to the wire. And I think one of the really key offensive plays, if not the key offensive play in the ball game, occurred at this point when Tom Abernathy made a great baseline drive to the basket, putting the ball in to increase our lead again to 8 or 10 points.
No doubt about that. It was a crucial play of the game. The score, once again, Indiana 48, UCLA 42. The Bruins had momentum. They were shooting 42% from the field compared to 30%, a cool 30 for Indiana. Watch this play develop now. Slowly, the Hoosiers work the ball. Abernathy just gets a step on his man at the baseline, and he's got it. And unfortunately, on that play, Abernathy injured himself. So off the bench came number 45, Jim Cruz, a 6'5" senior from Normal, Illinois. Indiana always had good bench strength all year long, and Cruz certainly proved it in the final minutes. As you can see, Indiana goes into the delay game. And it was Cruz who directed the Hoosiers down the stretch. Here he's trying to set up Kent Benson. And just watch this pass. He rifles into Benson, who is all alone underneath the basket. There it is. Only a few seconds remained as UCLA brought the ball down court for the last time. The Hoosiers had stopped the Bruins cold. UCLA would not be in the finals for only the second time in the past decade. It was a total team effort for the Hoosiers. Indiana had used only 6 players against UCLA, and each really contributed. Benson, May, Abernathy, Buckner all scored in double figures. Wilkerson had 19 rebounds. And credit Jimmy Cruz with some flawless ball handling. Having disposed of UCLA, the stage was now set. Monday, March 29th, Philadelphia Spectrum, Indiana against Michigan for the NCAA championship. The Michigan Wolverines, coached by Johnny Orr, had advanced to the big game by snapping Rutgers' 31-game winning streak. They beat the Scarlet Knights by 16 points in the semifinals. Twice during the regular Big Ten season, Indiana had beaten Michigan in close games, once in overtime. Never before had 2 teams from the Big Ten played for the NCAA basketball championship. To Bobby Wilkerson, a senior from Anderson, Indiana, it was more than just another game.
Everybody was really looking forward to coming in this game and, you know, doing the best that we could, because we knew this is, especially the 5 seniors, our last chance to show ourselves, and it could be, well, no doubt about it, it was the most important game in our, in our college career.
Bobby Knight had waited 2 years for this moment. Knight and the Hoosiers had come close a year ago. They won their first 31 games and then suffered a 92-90 loss to Kentucky in the Mideast Regional. Some say Indiana could have beaten Kentucky and gone on to win the national championship had Scott May not played with his broken left arm in a cast. Be that as it was, Indiana now had another chance. And here the Hoosiers were introduced for the final time. Number 42, Scott May, 33, Abernathy, 54, Benson, 21, Buckner, 20, Wilkerson. And now the thoughts of Coach Bobby Knight.
We knew that a very important thing for us would be to combat the Michigan speed, and actually the quickness of the Michigan team, probably one of the quickest teams I've seen play college basketball, was something that we had been faced with throughout a number of games prior to this one.
Sure enough, the Wolverines struck like lightning, running right from the start of the game. Watch this fast break. Number 45, John Robinson, passes to speedster Ricky Green. He beats everybody down court to score on an easy layup. And now pay close attention to this next play. Number 32 of Michigan, Wayman Britt. They head down court. After he shoots, his elbow accidentally smashes into the left temple of number 20, Bobby Wilkerson. Wilkerson dropped to the court, unconscious.
Well, I just remember, turning on a fast break and getting hit, and that was it. Me and Quinn was back, and he was on one side and I was on the other. And I turned as, Wayman Britt was going to shoot. And I got hit, and that's all I remember for a couple days.
As we can see close up, Wilkerson had been knocked cold. He lay motionless under the Michigan basket for a long time, more than 5 heart-stopping minutes. Fear quickly spread through the crowd of more than 17,000 people in the Spectrum. Wilkerson definitely appeared seriously injured. His teammates were visibly worried, so were the Michigan players. Now a healthy Bobby Wilkerson can recall his thoughts.
And it's kind of like I was dreaming, you know, and I wasn't sure. And the next day when I woke up, I kept asking everybody, you know, did we win? And it didn't seem for real, you know, just, I guess because I was unconscious.
Wilkerson's injury undoubtedly affected the play of the Hoosiers. Bobby Knight encouraged his players, but Michigan immediately took advantage of the situation, increasing the lead from 2 to 8 points in the next 5 minutes. Indiana, trailing 18-10, called a timeout to regroup. Following the timeout, Indiana played like a different team, starting with this beautiful Quinn Buckner pass to Kent Benson for the layup. Buckner also sets up the next basket. Passing off to Tom Abernathy. He makes it, and he was fouled, making it a 3-point play. Indiana's coming on strong. Scott May's jump shot cuts Michigan's lead to 18-17. And the action was frantic. Benson passing to Buckner. And he scores on this twisting shot, and Indiana leads 23-20. Johnny Orr obviously upset. But Michigan did not give up. On this play, number 30, Steve Grody steals an inbound pass. Ricky Green hits it. Michigan is ahead 31-27. Indiana comes right back. Number 45, Jim Cruz passes to Benson. And he scores on his famous sweeping hook shot. The Hoosiers trail by 2, 31-29. At halftime, Michigan led 35-29. There was still another 20 minutes to play, and Scott May talked confidently about the second half.
When we walked out in the second half, we were down 6 points against Michigan. I felt confident. I'm sure everybody on our squad felt confident. If we could have just catch up and tie the score within a few minutes, that there was no way they were going to keep us from winning the national championship.
The thing that without any question I'll remember most about the 1975-76 national championship season at Indiana University was the second half of the Michigan game. I felt this was probably the 20-minute segment that we played the best basketball that we played at any time during the course of the season. We made just 2 errors during the second half, and this was a team that I felt had worked extremely hard to get where they were, a team that I thought in every respect was deserving of the title national champion, and I think they went about the second half proving that they were the best team in the country.
All the experts agreed this was the finest 20 minutes of basketball they had ever seen. Indiana completely dominating the second half. One of the Hoosier stars was Kent Benson, connecting here on the hook shot, making the score. Michigan 39, Indiana 37. In the second half, Benson missed only 2 of 8 shots, in addition to pulling down 6 rebounds. 2 points now separated the teams. The Wolverines were definitely rattled and off their game, having scored only 4 points in the first 5 minutes of the second half. One reason was the all-around play of number 21, Quinn Buckner, the Indiana co-captain, who displayed superb leadership. What a second half he had. He did it all. The 6'3" senior from Phoenix, Illinois, hustled from one end of the court to the other. He rebounded. He stole the ball, and he scored. In the second half alone, he totaled 15 points. Here the Indiana spark plug scores again. No wonder his teammates considered him the team leader on the court. Johnny Orr simply could not believe Buckner's performance. Now with 11 minutes to go, Kent Benson taking a pass from Scott May. He scores on the layup, and Indiana is ahead 51-49, and the Hoosiers are rolling. Next it was Scott May's turn. He hangs in the air, scores on a jump shot from inside the circle. This next Indiana basket was a big one. Rich Valavicius scores after being set up by Jim Wisman. Number 23, Wisman was the key to the Indiana offense. He followed the coach's instructions perfectly.
As Coach Knight put me into the game, he said, all I want you to do is get the ball where it should be in the hands of Scott, where he can get his jump shot, or inside to Benny, where he could go on the Michigan centers.
With only 6 minutes to play in the game, Indiana leading 63-59, Scott May showed why he was known as Mr. Clutch, the play that broke Michigan's back. Watch this unbelievable shot. And here is May coming right back to do it again, this time on the fast break, to put Indiana ahead 78-66. The Hoosiers were just 2 minutes away from winning the national championship. Indiana spent the rest of the game at the free throw line as Michigan committed fouls in desperation in the final minutes. The Wolverines played gallantly, but it wasn't enough. And here's how Coach Bobby Knight felt at this point.
During the final moments of the Michigan game, I think those of you that witnessed it saw an extremely jubilant group of people, not just players but coaches alike. It was the end of a long, long wait and an awful lot of work, and I think everything just kind of spilled over at the end. We were often characterized as a team of mechanical people, but I don't think anyone that was around our team, anyone that was close to the players or the people involved would have ever thought this. This was a team with great emotions and great feelings for one another, and I think all of this was displayed at the end of the game.
The first Indiana starter to leave the game was Quinn Buckner, who rushed over and embraced a wildly exuberant Bobby Knight and then broke into the victory dance. Meanwhile, back on the court, there were only 12 ticks left on the clock. Another foul was called on Michigan. At this point, it was Scott May's turn to dance. He and Kent Benson had victory written all over their faces. They were deliriously happy. Together, they had accounted for 51 points and 17 rebounds. Scott May describes his feelings.
And that's what I wanted, to be a part of a national championship team. And I would have done anything in the world just to be a part of it. It was just like a dream come true.
And now Kent Benson's thoughts.
I personally have wanted to play in the national championship. Getting that opportunity was just fantastic, and I just thank God that I had the opportunity to play on such a fine team.
Following Benson off the court was number 45, Jim Cruz. Bobby Knight greeted Cruz the same way he did with the others, a big hug and a big embrace. The game ended on the following play. The Hoosier subs were on the court. The final play, number 22, Wayne Radford drives. He misses, but the rebound is put in by a leaping number 32, Mark Haymore. It was all over. The final score of 86-68 will live long in the memories of the Hoosiers. It would be hard to add any words to these pictures which tell the story of winning a national championship. Nevertheless, Bobby Knight did have one more thought about how this team of 76 would take its place among past Hoosier greats.
Indiana was very fortunate to have had 2 NCAA championships prior to 1976, in 1940 and 1953. And we know that the 1976 trophy will go alongside those other 2 trophies in a very, very cherished position in the memories of all Indiana sports fans.
This is Bill Fleming thanking you very much for reliving with us those wonderful moments for the Hoosiers in Philadelphia. 76, the year of the Hoosiers, has been presented for your enjoyment by the Lincoln National Life Insurance Company of Fort Wayne, Indiana.